thank you for giving us the opportunity to present for Savvy Ladies and educate your population. So we're going to ask, before we begin, let's ask everybody to take a moment, and whether you're married, engaged, or in a domestic partnership or any kinds of committed relationship, just take a moment and think about the most recent money conversation you had with your partner. So what was it like? How did it go? Do you feel that both of you were aligned? So just take a moment and really feel or re-experience that experience. Oh, that's terrible, re-experience that experience. Anyway, every person has their own, money personality, and most likely we have experienced financial conversations with our significant others that have been, challenging and filled with emotion, because basically the two of you probably don't see eye to eye when it comes to money, and each of you probably have different backgrounds or what I call monetary blueprints, which really are your money beliefs and behaviors, values, and goals. So, but we're here today, both Carrie and I are here today to tell you that you can have healthy money talks. They are achievable, and they may actually even strengthen your relationship. So functioning like a team and being on the same page about financial matters with your partner, I like to compare it to sort of like an orchestra. Different members contribute different things or different instruments, and when combined, they create something better than each individual contribution, right? So think of a symphony and the sound, or a sound of all of those instruments working and humming together. So I'm Ivy Menchel. As Maggie said, I'm a financial planner, I'm a business exit consultant and divorce financial analyst, and I really strive to bring confidence, financial independence, and harmony to those going through life-changing events, such as transitioning out of your business or loss of a loved one, divorce, and retirement. And on a daily basis, I see how different money beliefs impact couples as they plan for their future success in areas such as financial and risk management, investing, lifestyle preferences, and also estate planning.
And I'm Carrie, and thanks, Ivy, for that great introduction. So as mentioned, I'm both a divorce financial analyst and master money coach. I help professional women and couples build good money behaviors into their everyday busy lives. This includes helping you understand how you think about money, psychological triggers that drive your behaviors, and also where your money is flowing today versus where you want it to flow. Quite often, money is flowing out different places with each part of the partnership, and quite often people have very different money behaviors. As well, I help clients maximize their assets and lifestyles by accurately understanding tax implications in divorce. So Ivy and I come from different places but believe in absolutely the same thing, which is that money talks in your partnership are so very important early in the relationship, or it will just become more challenging. So we're going to get to the agenda here. The agenda is short. We're going to cover a lot of ground pretty quickly for you. Ivy just mentioned how money communication can strengthen your marriage. We mentioned in our presentation summary about this seminar that you regularly touch or discuss 3 things almost every day in your marriage: kids, household chores, and money. So imagine how little money differences, like spending behaviors, can begin to irritate your relationship and build over time. We refer to money as the last taboo. It's not considered romantic. Some of us feel that talking about it makes us greedy or selfish or shameful. And yet, dreaming about our future together is very romantic, and money can help us get there. So we're going to start with how you think about money, because we can pretty well guarantee that your partner thinks about money differently from you. Then we'll touch on why having a good discussion over values, your personal values, your shared values, how you want your money to support those values is so key. And of course, goals then give you targets so that you're both working toward the same things at the same time. We'll end touching upon teamwork, how teamwork feels when it's working versus when it's not. It will help you assess whether you and your partner are working as a good team.
So using our professional experiences, Carrie and I really want to help you build a stronger and perhaps even happier relationship. We believe through financial intimacy, trust, and transparency that this can actually be achieved. So much so that we actually built a course about money and marriage to provide a platform for couples to really begin to understand how each thinks about money, to develop a sustainable habits, and to better communicate about it, which we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this later. So as Carrie said, money does enter into your life every single day. And here are two quotes that we think are extremely applicable. You can disagree on anything as long as you talk through everything. And really, learn how to compromise. I think of an ex-boyfriend of mine that compromise was actually very challenging with him. To him, compromise meant dirty sacrifice, and it was really hard to compromise with somebody like that. You also need to explore ways to determine what works for you, what works for you as a couple and as a family, because after all, two heads are better than one, and the goal in marriage is not to think alike, but to think together. And I love this saying.
Okay, so now we're going to jump into the profiles quickly and focus really on what can happen when you conflict, when you're different profiles. There are many factors that impact your money profile, which is how you think about money. One major contributor is your own money beliefs formed in childhood. Maybe you heard your mother worrying about paying the bills and associate money with anxiety. Maybe you heard your father talk about the neighbor's new car and associate money with status. If your parents never talked about money, you probably never learned how to manage your own money. Other contributing factors can include your cultural background, the community you grew up in, gender, religion, and the media. So let's talk about the predominant money profiles based on the book Money Harmony by my friend Olivia Mellon and her co-author, Sherry Christie. So the amasser. The amasser is a great saver. You're usually concerned about keeping large amounts of cash nearby at your disposal to spend, save, and invest. Money for you means achievement, self-worth, and accomplishment. If you're an avoider, you have a disdain for cash in one form or another. You may not be interested in the boring money details. You may feel overwhelmed or incompetent. You may abdicate responsibility for managing any level of cash whatsoever. So when you think about it, the avoider puts all the responsibility on the other partner, all that pressure. Is this fair in a relationship? So imagine if you're an amasser and your partner is an avoider. You want to talk about money and you feel good when it's growing. You want to learn more. Your partner will appear disinterested or want to avoid the issue. It's crucial to find a level playing field where you both can discuss finances in a respectful and non-threatening way, because two heads are better than one, even when one of them isn't interested in money. Remember, you're both in this together. Then the hoarder won't spend anything. If you're a hoarder, you'll save every penny. You'll often deny yourself health care and personal development, even at work. You feel safe and prepared for anything by accumulating and retaining all of the money you possibly can. Money for you means security and preparedness.
The money monk believes that wanting money is greedy, and they view it as, quote, selling out. They're motivated to give, even at the risk of their own personal financial security. Their selfless generosity can create dependent relationships with others, and they can become disempowered. He or she may be an under-earner, and in their minds, they don't want to be a, quote, slave to money. And they're often very, self-righteous. A spender is someone who spends to bring immediate pleasure, love, or acceptance, and which can extend to indulging others. And a spender seeks to be admired and be valued in the world. They kind of see money as a way to achieve status, image, and recognition, regardless of whether they can afford to spend. So imagine if a money monk and a spender got together. Imagine, the conflict that can be created from that. Warriors are focused on lacking. They count pennies and they think about money a lot. He or she most likely don't really have the facts about how they compare with others, and they're concerned about protecting what they have instead of the possibility of earning more. And for the risk taker, risk is a thrill, it's an adventure. Safety is like a straitjacket for them. So they are more willing to invest lump sums into one investment with the hopes of winning like a huge jackpot. The thrill is often more important than the end result, and they may suffer severe distress or depression when they experience financial loss. So, these money profiles are really interesting, and I'm sure as Carrie and I were going through it, you were thinking about what's your profile, what's your partner's profile. We actually have a quiz that you can take to help you discover and identify each of your money personalities. So contact either Carrie or myself, and we can send you a profile. Send you the quiz, sorry. So once you understand your money profile as well as your partner's, it's time to get clear on what's important to each of you. You see, your values should really determine the way that you live. So what are some values that are important to people? Well, maybe, authenticity, fairness, inner harmony, maybe security or status, trustworthiness. Those are just, a few. The list could be endless. And to quote Roy Disney, it's not hard to make decisions when you know what your values are.
Yeah, and before we jump into teamwork, talking about profiles for a second, Ivy, I can pretty well guarantee everyone on the phone that you think you're one profile.
Yeah, right.
And you
that's a good point.
Yeah, you probably are to some degree. You are probably another profile you don't even see, but I bet your partner does. So it's really interesting to sort of compare, because you will notice certain behaviors of your own. You may not notice others. And so it may be the part that you don't know about that may be conflicting with your partner.
Well, and it's really because, each one of us does have a little bit of several profiles,
Yep.
but we all really do have a predominant profile.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. A predominant one or two for sure. Yeah. Again, based on your childhood, where you grew up, how you grew up. So anyway, segueing back into teamwork. So your profiles, you're different. There's nothing wrong with that. You grew up differently. You probably didn't even know what your money beliefs were because they're part of you. But now what this means is that you want to have respect for each other because you grew up differently, because you bring different insights. This is the beginning of your team. You're different. You bring different things to the table. So teamwork starts with prioritizing your values, like Ivy had suggested, and how you want to live your life, not only today, but in the future. What is important to you? What is important to both of you? If you don't define your own goals and dreams in life, you will be pushed and pulled into other people's agendas rather than your own. I can't underline this enough because this is the kind of work I do. I see it all the time. You stray from your own values and dreams because they weren't clarified with you and your partner, and you get pulled into other people's agendas, encouraged to spend your money on other things that just aren't aligned with your values. So these goals are based on what you want to achieve in life, and they should be aligned with your values. Here's a small example. Let's say one of your goals is to travel somewhere exotic every 2 years. And for you, travel means adventure, freedom, and learning about a different culture. So if you want to live those values because they're important, what you may decide is that your second goal, a home, is going to be a smaller home so that you can afford to travel. If the two of you agree on that, you realize the values that are most important to you, and you know where you're heading. So a good team also starts with the clear, prioritized goals with timelines on them. So I mentioned traveling every 2 years. That's got a pretty clear timeline on it. And there is no I in team. The most successful marriages are those where each spouse learns how to function as a team member and lean on one another's strengths. Each spouse can use his or her talents for the good of the team. The team will be significantly impacted if one party tries to do it all, or if they take on a task he or she is not gifted for. And you go back to a profile that abdicates on money responsibility. What if you're abdicating, but you're actually better at it than your partner? But they're the ones carrying the load, and the team is not going to go forward well because they're not the strong one in the party.
And they may even be resentful that they're carrying that load.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So the combined effort of the team is always greater than the sum of the individual efforts. So 1 + 1 = 3. And that's why we have this boat on the screen. Everyone is rowing in the same time, in the same direction. You go so much faster than if you have one of those rowers not rowing at all or rowing off count from everyone else. It's going to slow things down. So what does a good team look like? And here's where you want to reflect on your relationship today just a little bit. Priorities are agreed upon. So even when you have to divide and conquer all week, you're going in different directions, you have different jobs, you have so many things to get done, so many decisions to make, you're making decisions that feed into your top priorities as a couple. You have decreased tension. You have good communication. You have natural flow effortlessly. You have creative thinking and learning. So no one is defensive. You respect each other. You respect your differences. You honor each other. And you recognize that although your partner doesn't think exactly like you, maybe that's a great way to stretch and find some compromise in the middle. Trust. You trust that you will each do what needs to be done to keep the rowing in the right direction. So it goes back to divide and conquer, making decisions, getting the things done that both help your finances at the end of the day. And you have a greater sense of ownership. You can see the momentum. You can see the fruits of your labor, and you are doing your best because you love each other.
All right. So now that you think like a team, there needs to be guidelines or some sort of framework to actually function like a team. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, first, determine how each of you will contribute to the household. Things like chores, income, kids' activities, maybe social activities or recreational activities, and then make sure that you're both comfortable with that and acknowledge and, more importantly, appreciate the contributions that the other one's making. If you are the one who's paying the bills, appreciate, and you think that that's important, appreciate that your partner is the one who is taking the kids to their after-school activities. So it's really important to acknowledge and appreciate the contributions of the other. Discuss what you expect to earn as a team. What are the earning capabilities, and or desires for each of you, and clarify how you will spend as a team. Different people have different goals, what they're looking for. Make sure that you differentiate between your fixed expenses and your discretionary expenses. And how will you handle that? Will you share expenses and each one of you pay all bills together, or will you be responsible for certain expenses and your partner be responsible for other expenses? So, for example, would I be the person paying the electric and telephone bills, and will my partner be the one paying, the mortgage and the snow removal? So really, figure out what works for you. Then how much will you save for the short term, the intermediate term, and the long term, because it's very important to set up different buckets. Are there charities, let's say like Savvy Ladies, that you would like to support? Will all money go into a joint account, or will each of you maintain a separate account, or perhaps even a combination of both? I've seen it go lots of different ways, and depending on the clients, it works, either way, as long as you talk it through. Will you invest? Will you invest together? Will decisions be made together, or will each of you maintain your own investment accounts? And again, these are just some of the examples of things to think about. We don't know the details of your own personal situation, but keep in mind decisions can be made jointly or by each partner in his or her area or talent. Yet it's really critical that all of this information is shared with one another on a regular basis. So we suggest exploring and experimenting. Find out what works for the two of you. As we said, it's different for everyone. And really the most important thing in teamwork is to accept and respect each other's differences. No judgments.
Now, do you think it could have gone differently than it did? think through the things we've shared, perhaps some of those could have been applied a little differently. So we'll leave that with you. If you would like to strengthen your marriage, if you feel maybe you need a bit of help, we just wanted to share the course that Ivy and I created together for couples. It's a 5-week course, and it has about 10 hours of class time. So it's good, solid work, but it's an amazing course, and you'll come up thinking so differently and caring for your money so differently. We believe that you can make money a discussion of dreams and love, not tension. So please don't forget that you can get your money personality quiz from us if you would like that. If you have interest in our course, you can contact at the bottom there, committed@behavioralsense.com. We would like to thank you for your time today and open it up to questions.
Thanks, Ivy. Thanks, Carrie. That was really great, and I see we had some questions come in. And just a reminder, if you have a question now, you can type it into the chat box, or you can email info@savvyladies.org. And the first question we have for you is asking for your thoughts on separate bank accounts.
So I chuckle because Carrie and I have very different, and it's funny that that was the first question. Carrie and I have different views on this. So this is Ivy speaking. So I think that having separate bank accounts could be a positive thing. It really depends on your circumstances. However, as we said, you need to be clear what each of you are spending and on what, who's taking care of what responsibilities in the household and for your future. Sometimes clients do keep separate bank accounts, but it could be helpful to have a joint account for certain expenses. And it's not a separate account because you're hiding money. It's a separate account. If I'm buying a present for my partner, I don't necessarily want him to see how much I spent on that gift, or to have a little bit of a, fun money, so to speak, because different things will be important to different people. So you can set, come up with your own guidelines and rules. What expenses will come out of your joint account and what expenses will come out of your separate account?
So I actually agree with that. My husband and I married at the ripe age of 40 for the first time. My husband and I had been used to being single for quite some time. We actually kept separate bank accounts. Here's what you need to do, though, and I also agree that yes, especially when you get married later in life, you want independence, right, for all those good reasons. It is important to make sure that you oversee all of it somehow under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. So where is your total liquidity? I might have $3,000 of extra cash in my account, and my husband might have, $2,000. So we know that at the end of the day, if a car needed a repair, we can oversee where our flexibility is. I believe that as well, and I know Ivy agrees with this, seeing investments as a whole too, because what is your total financial position, right? If you want to purchase a house for the first time, what are your credit scores? Are they both good? Do you have enough for the down payment? And then who's going to carry the load of the mortgage, or does it go into that shared bucket if you want to have one? And the shared bucket, which Ivy alluded to, the household account, some people like to have it, some people don't. It's important to check in, though, every once in a while because expenses will change over time, right? So if, let's say you both agreed you were paying 50-50, so 50% of expenses out of your account, 50% out of your partner's account, at the end of the day, if something started to get more expensive, all of a sudden you're out of kilter and you want to check in a bit again.
And I think also from an estate planning perspective, too, it may make sense to separate assets. But that's a really good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Overseeing doesn't mean combining.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ivy and I both kind of agree on that, too.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question for you is, my partner and I agreed on certain expenses, but then in the moment, he can change his mind. Do you have suggestions on keeping my partner accountable for the decisions that we make?
Wow, yes. So he just changes his mind. And so the first question is, where does this money come from, right? So if this is a joint account and your partner is spending more money out of the joint account, you might want to discuss having a separate account so that what's in the joint account are the items that have to be paid, like your rent or your mortgage, insurance, things like that. And then if he wants to have his own play account, then he has to be accountable for when that account goes to zero. It's the same thing with a credit card. You know, if he's using the joint credit card and disobeying sort of the rules, you might want to suggest he get his own credit card and pay the penalty himself. Now, having said that, you know, when you're married, if you've got all this debt, it's not going to help if you ever want to buy a house someday. So the question would then be, why is he overspending? What triggers him? Is he buying certain things? Is he triggering after feeling a certain way? Like, is it, you know, he's had a bad week at work.
Right, is it emotional spending?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So he could be triggering. And the thing is, too, if the rules are too tight, if he is a spender and you guys have every penny allotted for because that's all you have at the moment, he's reacting. And a spender, he just needs to understand who he is and what will trigger it, because if you are saving to a point of deprivation, he will continue to do that. So there are some thoughts without actually seeing the situation. It's a starting point.
And I think also it's key to really revisit the rules, because maybe those quote rules were set up under different circumstances and they may not be applicable now. Also, get clear not only what your money personality is, but also what does money really mean to you too, because that will play out also.
Yeah.
And are you upset with his spending because you sort of need to be in control? So, like, I think not only do you have to look at his spending or your partner's spending, let's be gender neutral here, but also you have to look inwardly too, and what it means for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Moving on to the next question is asking, I've been married for just under 2 years. I'm more of a spender and my other half is more of a saver. I don't know if we'll ever be able to compromise. What are some good ways to start a money conversation?
So first of all, with your profiles, you spend, but what does spending mean to you? Is it freedom? Is it treating yourself? Is it not wanting to be, and I'll be honest here, not wanting to be responsible for your expenses, right? What does saving mean to him, and how important is it to save? Where did you learn that from? So did you learn to spend because you used to go shopping with your mom, and when you went shopping with your mom, it was a wonderful bonding experience, and you loved it because you were with your mom and you had fun together? So does spending actually mean something else other than just spending? And so how do you duplicate that feeling in other ways? So that's the first thing to really look at. What are spending and saving? Where do they come from? in your life, and what do they symbolize at the end of the day? Second of all, have you talked about your values and goals? So if you want to own a home, or if you own a home but you know you need to buy a new car in 3 years, where is your money going? And is the car more important than spending on other things? So you're really making choices. If you don't have goals, you don't have to make choices, right? You just spend because there is no alternative. But when you have goals, then you can say, do I buy this purse?
You both know what you're working towards and working for, so it may actually help the spending and the saving, because if you get a little bit clearer how much you can spend and how much you can, you're hoping to save, you're setting up the rules of engagement, so to speak.
Okay. And the last question is asking, is there such a thing as a joint retirement account for two spouses?
No. Each retirement accounts are for each individual. There isn't a joint retirement account. Fortunately. So each individual is actually responsible for saving for their own retirement and contributing to their own account. Good questions.
Yes, really good questions.
Okay,
You
great.
guys are thinking about this stuff. I like it.
That's good to hear. All right, so those are all the questions we have. So I'll just pull up this last slide here. And I want to thank you again, Ivy and Carrie, for a really great presentation. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. We'll be sending out the contact information and links from this presentation if you didn't have a chance to write it down. And thank you again so much, Ivy and Carrie.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thanks, guys. Glad to have you.
Bye.
Bye.